What's good? What's good? What's good? As I eat my snacks. But you are now watching Juke Boy Sports Show. I am your host, Kyng Ralph, here with another solo dolo episode. These oatmeal cream pies and slapping bread. But let's pull up stuff because we did switch over to a new streaming platform. Shout out to Streamlabs. StreamYard was trying to do too much. So, there we go. There we go. And before we get started, like we always do, gotta send a little shout out to the sponsors. If you're looking for a clean, no crash energy drink, go ahead, hop on, gang, you're. But if you're looking for a clean, no crash, genderless energy drink, get on your iPhone, iPads, computers, all that. Go on DUBBYW.com. Use promo code JUKJUKE for 20% off. We're going to get you right. And make sure you go like, subscribe while you're here. If you haven't already, like. If you in the chat, say what up. Like, comments, share, all that good stuff. You can follow me at KYNGRALPH on TikTok, Twitch, Instagram, @_ for X and Twitter. JUK, Juke Network. You can find that on Facebook as well as YouTube. Go like and subscribe over there. Once I get to 100 followers on Facebook, I'll be able to go live straight from that page. And let's get into it, man. NBA players have been wild. Prayers up for the boy, Jason Tatum. He did have a successful Achilles surgery. So he will be gone for the next year. Considering how late it is, he might miss all of next season. Depends on what happens. Hopefully for a speedy recovery for your boy. But Cavs, when I started this, it was Cavs have officially lost. Pacers have beat the Cavs 114-105, sending the Cavaliers home. Injuries and all of that, man. I think that going into this, I've had the Cavs every year. There's like a sports team or some kind of organization that I gotta see it for me to believe it. I don't care how good of a season that you have. I think that the Cowboys are going to end up being a good team this year, but I got to see it. The Cavaliers, I got to see it. These are just, hey. These are organizations and teams, and the Cavaliers are just one of them that I don't care how good you play, I got to see it. Like the Thunder and the T-Wolves on the West. Really, at the end of the day, it just depends on what team is hot, who's rolling at the moment, but both teams are really good, but I got to see it. And so Pacers get the Cavaliers out of here. I would assume, given the injury to Jason Tatum, that honestly, I do believe the Celtics are going to get the next game, but I think that after that, it's a wrap. It is what it is. I think just off of pure heart and pride, I think they'll be able to get a game because they do have a really good team without Jason Tatum, but without your real leader, pretty much leads the team in every statistical category. Without him, you're asking for your team to do a lot. And I just don't think that they can come back from 3-1 without him. So in the end, I got it's going to end up being Pacers-Knicks, which those are always end up being good series. Last year they went to 7 games, although the Knicks were riddled with injuries. If you go through history, the amount of times that the Knicks have played the Pacers back when Reggie Miller played, even I think the last time that the Knicks, I'm trying to get my tooth. I think that the last time the Knicks got to the finals, they had to go through the Pacers in order to make that happen. So I do think in the end it's going to end up being good. It's going to be a good series. At this point, you got to put the Knicks as the favorite to get to the finals. I just think that Cat, Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, and Brunson, all of them, if all of them are healthy, I just feel like they will end up being too much for the Pacers in the end. But if the Pacers can play at their pace, they play at a fast pace, and they're shooting lights out right now. Anybody can win the series, but I am gonna say Knicks in 6. And then going over to the Western Conference, let's see, have they started their game yet? Not that I knew of. They have started. They are just about finishing up the first quarter. Nuggets are up on the Thunder right now by 3 points. The series is tied. Where do I go? Man, honestly, I think that the Thunder are starting to get their feet, like they're settling in with this series. I think Jalen Williams, the big, where there's a Jalen Williams that plays off ball on the same team, but the one that plays the 5, Jalen Williams is playing Jokic very tough. I seen some wild stat where Jokic is shooting less than 20% when being guarded by Jalen Williams. So in the end, I do think that the Thunder will be able to beat the Nuggets. I got them. I can see it going 7 games. I think they're just 2 evenly matched teams. Where in the end, the Thunder, will end up being just a little bit better in the end in order to be able to get the victory. So I got them. Yeah, I got the Nuggets. I got the Thunder in 7. I got the Wolves in 5. I think the sooner that they get the Warriors out of here, because I think the longer you let this prolong, if the Warriors can get it to 6 games, then they'll have an opportunity. Steph comes back, new energy, and they can get the momentum in order to be able to push it to a 7-game series. But I think that the T-Wolves are just in the end of be too much for the Warriors. Anthony Edwards playing lights out right now. Julius Randle playing lights out right now. They're getting a lot of contribution from all over. The role players, the others, like Shaq would say, are playing lights out right now. And I just think that in the end, they're just too much. With no Steph, the quicker you can get them out of there, it's easy street at that point. And so I see him, and this conversation's been floating around for a long period of time. Malik Neighbors was on 7 p.m. Brooklyn on Carmelo Anthony's podcast, and they got talking about wide receiver U. And this is where I think you gotta. LSU recently has been putting out like top tier talent when it came to the wide receiver position. Where if you go through history, this is where my bias of Ohio State comes in. Like they have the Joey Galloways, they have the Chris Carters, David Boston, and then recently over the last 10 to 15 years, there's been the likes of Michael Thomas. To then now to go into their bag, where recently you got Garrett Wilson, Mike Thomas, Terry McLaurin, Marvin Harrison Jr., Jackson Smith and Jay, who just got drafted this year, and Chris Olave. And then to go down the pipeline, there's Chris Henry Jr., who's coming up next. Marvin Harrison's brother is coming up next, and I do believe he is being heavily recruited by Ohio State. And then what's my boy that's there right now? Jeremiah Smith. I think it's Jeremiah. Hold up. Yeah, Jeremiah Smith, and he might be one of the best out of all of them, honestly, with the way to hit the trajectory of his career. And so I think when we really start to have these conversations, I do want to acknowledge everybody in it, although I've said that I think Ohio State. So LSU over the last 10 years or so, they got Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas Jr., Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, OBJ, Jarvis Landry was another one that came from there. But then they've had some others that were like like Brandon LaFell, just some others that were decent receivers, but were never really like high level Pro Bowlers. But I think over the last couple years, to go through the Brian Thomas and Malik Neighbors 1,000-yard receivers, Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase are top 3 receivers right now. There wasn't a more popular wide receiver at his peak than Odell Beckham. And Jarvis Landry was always like Mr. Consistent. He was going to get you 1,000 yards. He was sure-handed, possession receiver, moved the chains. And I think that Bama, honestly, for the longevity part of it, I think that Bama, I would put Bama second on the list before I would put LSU, only for the sake of longevity. You got Julio Jones, then Amari Cooper, Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, Calvin Ridley, Jameson Williams, Jared Judy. I know he ended up doing what he did, but what was my boy's name? Oh, right. Ruggs, Henry Ruggs. I don't know why it was stumping me. Henry Ruggs, Jared Judy, um, just that class of the Julio Jones, who's a Hall of Famer. Amari Cooper was always solid and really good. Then now the Jalen Waddles, the Jameson Williams, the Devontae Smiths, what they're doing in the league, and then even Jared Judy is starting to carve a niche for himself with the season that he just had. And so I think that Bama, in my personal opinion, is I would put them at 2 on the list, LSU at 3. Just if we're speaking about right now, because I just think that Bama and Ohio State have a longer list of names. But in the end, the 4 that I mentioned for LSU could end up pushing that list to a whole nother level. Plus, you never know what was happening. Like, shout out to him and his family, but Lacey, he was supposed to be the next one. And so RIP to the boy. It's a sad situation what happened with that, but I just don't think that they're on there. But I do think that there's other teams that or schools that don't get mentioned like the way that they should with this conversation, just for the sake of numbers, like I mentioned before. When you start to think about wide receiver U, like at one point, damn, my eyes itching. At one point, you had to put USC in there. And then it's just to think about who they currently have in the league right now. St. Brown, what he's doing with the Lions, Drake London, and how he started his career. Michael Pittman is Mr. Consistent over there in Indianapolis. Jordan Addison had a breakout year last year, and then Juju Smith Schuster won a Super Bowl, was a key weapon in that offense for the Chiefs when they won that Super Bowl. So, and just being a tough, hard-nosed receiver, someone that you've been able to count on with Juju is why I would put them at 4. Then when you go through history, the Keyshawn Johnsons, the like thinking about that USC team with Mike Williams and what was it, Robert Smith, and then no, Robert Woods. Robert Woods is still in the league to this day. I think that just over the years, they've been able to stack up names and numbers of receivers that would, I don't think when people are starting to have this conversation, it's kind of became a 3-legged race because they separated themselves so much now. But you got to give a shout out to them. And a low key team is Ole Miss. When I was looking at people that play for them, I don't know why I put AJ Green. It's supposed to be AJ Brown. Ralph, get it together, bro. See, this is what happens when you smoke and then try to record and you're doing all of this by yourself. It's doing too much, man. Lock in, Ralph. Lock in. But AJ Brown, DK Metcalf, Elijah Moore, Jonathan Mingo, and Trey Harris, all are names that are either trying to create a niche for themselves or high-level names right now. don't really have like the depth of the other teams, but with the hype and where they are currently, all of these names could end up being someone that could make a Pro Bowl team at some point. Elijah Moore's had a lot of hype, but hasn't really been able to really be that consistent threat that we thought. A lot of people expected like what my boy up in Baltimore, Zay Flowers. What Zay Flowers has become is a lot of what a lot of people thought Elijah Moore could be. Although I do believe Zay Flowers is much faster. But in the end, I do think that Ole Miss is, if you were to really go through all of the teams, especially as of recently, you got to give Ole Miss some love. So finishing up the show, got the fast break. Honestly, I don't know why this was even a conversation, to keep it a buck with you, but I hope that after how bad and poorly that James Harden played in the last game 7 that he played in a couple weeks ago, that deads this conversation of who was better, him or D Wade. Because just sheer off of like hoops, there is two sides of the court where we start this conversation at. And D Wade, although he's like 6'3", 6'4", he was a rim protector on the help side that James Harden wished he could be, or would never be. I don't even know if he wishes he could be, but would never be. He just not that rim protector. Then doesn't really have the want to play defense, where D Wade was out there locking up, guarding. And so I think the thing about it is I don't understand why. Like I get it, points is important, but how do you? I don't know why people had this. I get it. Them some of them stat lines was crazy though. I'm not gonna hold you. He 36, 9 and 10 on any given night. But I just think that like looking, he has 3 scoring titles, 2 assists, 2-time assist champ, and 11-time All-Star. Then when you really, he was an MVP, 7-time All NBA, 6th Man of the Year, All Rookie Team, part of the top 75. And then when you even just from an accolade standpoint, all right, there we go. D Wade. So he's a Hall of Famer, 13-time All Star, 8-time All NBA, 3-time um, won three rings, 3 times All Defensive Team, All Star MVP. Doesn't have an MVP, does have a scoring title. I just think that I don't think Dwayne Wade is getting the credit that he deserves, and I think what he was able to do with the team, what he did in that finals by himself against the Mavericks, where just James Harden, I don't know. I feel like everybody that is when they got their name in the league, when you start to look through people that were like Larry Bird, 3-time MVP, he won 3 straight MVPs, won all these rings, was known as the best at his position when he retired. Then you get Mike and what he was and what he became. Um, all of these players that were the best at their position were or the greatest at their position. What they did in the playoffs was really what made them legends and greats in this league. So I just find it funny that there's where how fans look at basketball nowadays. It's like they ignoring rings and playoff success and how much you won for the sake of uplifting your favorite player. I just don't quite understand it. Now I get it. Rings should not be an all end all be all because in the end it is a team sport. But how did you play when the team needed you most? And when you look at James Harden, he has too many games where if he's a 30-point scorer, when they need him to ball out in a game 7, he's giving you like 26 and 5, which for anybody else is a decent night. That's a good night. but not from your best player on your team in a pivotal game 7. And that's where I feel like Dwayne Wade in that moment is he's producing in that moment. And to a degree that James Harden is not. And so I don't see why it's close. I feel like it's clearly Mike, Kobe, Dwayne Wade, Allen Iverson, and then James Harden for me is where I would probably put him at 5. But I wouldn't be mad if you wanted to throw someone else in there. I know this one might piss people off, but Manu Ginobili, I'm not mad if you put him at 5 because I'm definitely not putting him anywhere above any of the other guys. But I could see him being higher on the list than James Harden. And so I'm sure you've seen it by now, but Dallas Mavericks get the number 1 overall pick. They had a 1.7 chance or 1.8 chance. And yeah, they're never going to beat those, the NBA's rated charges. Because how does the team that has a 1.8 chance just so happen to get the number 1 pick and Luka was just traded for scraps to the Lakers out in LA? Like, make it make sense. Mikal Bridges, they traded five first-round picks for bros. And he's not half the player that Luka is, or what people think Luka is. I don't think the gap is that far, but it's neither here nor there. But it just looks fishy. It smells fishy. If you quack like a duck, walk like a duck, it's not a catfish. So I think in the end, I don't blame people for questioning it, because how do you have all these moments through history where a major player was moved or was lost, and then the team gets the number 1 pick upon replacing that player? I just don't quite understand it. Drewski meme, but you know what I mean? I'm trying to work my way up here. I don't want to piss nobody off with conspiracy theories, but I feel like that's one that's ugh. But I think in the end, because of what I'm going to bring up next and Giannis being open to a trade, I think some of these other like the Spurs at 2, they have a 2 and a 14 trade assets. Some players that they can give up in order to be. They got players and picks to be able to land, and just to think of like Wemby and Giannis with De'Aaron Fox. That would look crazy, because then Wemby can still play the 5, but then he could be the type of 5 that stretches it so it doesn't clog things up for Giannis in the paint. But then also from a defensive standpoint, good luck in the paint, because them you put their wingspan, they probably out there with 30 feet worth of arms. So I think that would be dope. But then the 76ers, hilarious seeing Daryl Morey when the pick came out, just put his head down. Thank you for not rewarding the Jazz and the tank job that they did with a number 1 pick. If they would have just been bad enough, but they were tanking. They had players that weren't playing. All of a sudden, they hurt this game, but they healthy this, but injury report don't match. It's all types of little stupid, dumb shit in order to get it. And I'm glad that they did not. And so Giannis, like I mentioned, is open to the idea that his time in Milwaukee might be up. What would be the best fit? Me personally, I think that Houston, I've heard that he wants to be on the East Coast and that he does not want to be on the West Coast. I think Houston, just from a basketball standpoint, would make the most sense, being able to keep a Şengün, keep the Thompson twin, be able to use a Jalen Green and a and Jabari Jr. as trade, well, along with the picks to be able to get a Giannis, Şengün, Fred VanVleet, and Thompson. I feel like is the best basketball fit now, in the sense of being able, like, at first I thought the Knicks, but because of the success that the Knicks are having, I know Brooklyn is trash right now, but just thinking of like the Mediterranean Greek influence in New York, how Giannis Antetokounmpo would be received upon getting to and being traded to Brooklyn would go crazy. And that's where, for me, like, I would be. Those are my two destinations. Would say the Houston Rockets, because I just don't see the Mavericks trading. Nico would not make it out of Dallas alive if he traded that number one pick for Giannis or any player, especially KD. And I'll talk about that another time. But I just feel like, in the end, from a basketball sense, those are the two teams. I think Houston, because of picks and the players. I could see San Antonio as well from a basketball standpoint. You have the rookie of the year, Stephen Castle. You have, what's my man? Because he shoots free throws. Weird, I forget his name though. He's like a point forward, Vassell, and some picks. The number 2 pick, the number 14 pick, to be able to make some trades and make some noise. I do think that the Spurs are a team that I could see end up being in the trade market to be able to get a big splash player. But I just don't. The only one that makes sense for me, given the picks that they have, is Giannis. Because if I'm the Suns, I'm not. Or if I'm the Spurs, I'm not trading for KD and giving up. I'll kind of give up the 14th pick, but I'm not giving you the number 2 pick. Like, you know what I mean? You catch my drift. But thank you all for watching. I do got to get up out of here. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the show, make sure you like, subscribe, comment, share, all that good stuff. Thanks to my peoples that hopped in the chat. Thank you. But like, comment, subscribe, share. When I do these shows, I need the engagements. I appreciate people for popping in. But while you're here, say what up, ask a question about the show. If you have questions you want me to answer, you're more than welcome to put them on there. DM me. You can follow me at KYNG RALPH on TikTok, Twitch, Instagram. Me and my brother started a new podcast that I will be dropping within the next 2 weeks, called the Two Goobs podcast. We just talk about many things: music, life, sports, whatever comes to mind. But this one, I do more of like a sports news with my personal commentary about things that are happening, so they won't clash at any point. But like I said, you can follow me at KYNG RALPH. Like and follow Juke Network on Facebook. Subscribe at Juke Network on YouTube, and follow us at Juke Sports Show, JUK Sports Show. And I'm out of here.